So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're very happy to have you all here. My name is Roxanne, so I work for Be Vegan, and I will be the host of this Q&A tonight with, of course, Julius Fiedler. Um, Before I go any further, I want to make sure that I pronounce your name correctly, Julius, because it's a German name.
Yeah,
And so was the
yeah,
pronunciation,
you
was
did
it
it the
good?
right way. Julius Fiedler is right. I think
Julius
in
Fiedler.
Germany you would say Julius, but I'm
Julius,
completely
okay.
no used to Julius. So
Okay.
perfect, absolutely smashed
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Yeah, well, German is one of our national languages, but none
Yeah,
of
of
us
course,
really
true.
speak it. So,
Fine. Yeah.
so yeah. So
Um,
before we start with the questions, I wanted to quickly explain how the session will work to all of you present here tonight. So as you can see, your microphones are shut off and your cameras are also off. So the cameras are off because the webinar is being recorded. So we can share it later. And of course, we want to respect everyone's privacy. So that's why, sadly, we cannot see your lovely faces tonight, but we will have to do with your little colors and your little icons. Um, Also, the microphones are off to avoid any background noise. So if you have any question whatsoever, please use the chat. And I see that there's already been a question. Someone says they cannot hear the speakers. So can other participants confirm that you can hear us just fine? And maybe it's just a local. Okay, thank you, Ellen. Thank you so much. So I hope everything works fine for the other participants. And like I said, if there's any problem or you have any question, make sure don't hesitate to use the chat. Um, so we'll be also going through the questions that you send in for Julius in just a moment. So many of you have sent us questions, so thank you for that. If you have any new questions that come up during this chat, during the webinar, please, as I said, feel free to ask them in the chat, and we will try to answer as many as possible at the end of the talk. If you feel more comfortable asking your question in French or Dutch, that's no problem, do so, and I will do my best to translate everything.
Thank you.
Yes, and if you have a question in German, then Julius, you can
You'll be
translate
fine with that.
it
Yeah.
directly for us. Um, so also, if at any point you have to leave early, any of you have to leave early, that's not a problem because, like I said, everything is recorded, so you can just rewatch the webinar in your couch or whatever afterwards, because you will be receiving all of the information next week. So with that boring introduction, technical part out of the way, it's time to introduce today's speaker. So Julius Fiedler, who many of you might know better under the name Herman or Baking Herman on social media. So Julius, as you probably all know, is a filmmaker who turned food creator. So he began by hosting sourdough baking classes during the pandemic. I think there also was a time where, everybody was making banana bread and sourdough, so I'm sure it
True.
was really helpful. And then you went on to work as a professional food stylist for Jamie Oliver. And nowadays you share all of your beautiful and inspiring cooking videos on all of your online platform with a focus on natural, unprocessed, and plant-based food. So
Thank you.
yes, I hope all of my information was correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So no, but we're happy to host you during this Try Vegan month because many people joining us tonight will either already be vegan or just, making their first baby steps into a plant-based lifestyle. And, we've all been there. We know that switching our way of eating can be a challenge sometimes. So it's really amazing that you share these recipes and that you show us, how delicious and exciting vegan food can be, and that it can be found all around the world. So thank you for that. And of course, that's also the idea behind your first cookbook, Naturally Vegan, that was published this year, and that celebrates traditional dishes from around the world that are naturally plant-based. So Julius, thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's really amazing. And like I said, you've been creating food content for years. And yes, maybe could you tell us how you started making food videos online and how your cookbook project began?
Yeah, you already sort of mentioned it a little bit, but it started with the sourdough baking classes. The name Herman, also to the question that came up in the chat, you can find me on the channel @Herman on Instagram and on some other social media channels like YouTube, etc. @BakingHerman. Obviously, I'm called Julius, but Herman is what we give our sourdough starter in Germany as a name. It's quite common as a tradition as a baker, as a hobby baker. I'm not a professional baker, but to give your sourdough starter a name. So I started a little bit before lockdown with baking sourdough. So I had a bit of that knowledge of how to make your own starter and how to make a sourdough bread with that. So when lockdown happened, when COVID came around, I had a lot of time because I was put on furlough in the UK, which was a government scheme to sort of like you weren't allowed to work, but you were still being paid. It was really strange. It was quite I guess like an awkward position to be in. You got money for not being able to work, and I just felt quite guilty at that in that sense. So I just said, okay, I need to use that time and share something that I really care about. And at that moment, there was just the passion for food. I think sourdough really for me was the entry to the world of food because I got really fascinated by making something with one ingredient, flour, and you add salt and a little bit of water, but that's it. The rest is just bacteria and fermentation and craftsmanship. So it started with that. I just hosted these sourdough baking classes during that time, during furlough. They were for free. People could tune in from wherever they were in the world. It was quite a wholesome project because you shared this passion of like giving, how to make a sourdough with somebody else from Belgium, from Germany, from the UK, wherever they were. And I think that sort of was a spark for me to say, let's do that with more food, not just with sourdough. Let's maybe do some videos and play around with that. So also at that time, TikTok just started. So I saw all these food videos on TikTok and I thought, I'll give that a go. And it became a vehicle to sort of pass on that passion, really. And then, sorry, you mentioned the book, which was, so I think I started TikTok 2021. And then the book came about 2 years after that. So all in all, the book took 3 years to make, but it was for the first year I had an idea for a book, but I didn't have a publisher. So I started working on a book for a year, and then the year after that, I got a publisher involved, and then it took another 2 years to sort of get it completely done. So it was a long journey, but yeah, here we are now.
Yeah, quite a long journey. Thank you for sharing. I don't think non-authors realize how long it can take to actually get from the first idea to publishing the book. So it's great that it's there now.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So maybe I'll go on to ask you the first question that we got from a participant. And that was, why did you decide to switch to a plant-based diet?
That's the big question. That's like the one. I think I always, it's nice to say it in this environment because I always struggle when you have that conversation with a non-vegan, because I feel like there's often a lot of unsaid or between the lines, there's a lot of judgment or guilt or anticipation when you have this conversation. I think for me, ultimately, the short answer is that I just ran out of arguments. I think I was struggling with that for 3 years to sort of find a way of eating that I would find ethical. And for me, there was a way of like saying, okay, I'm going to eat free range, I'm going to eat organic, and then I'm going to like know the farm where my meat comes from. And it was a really long journey, and always like becoming more and more niche to source my ingredients, basically. I think ultimately I just realized that I was just finding excuses to, you know, sort of have that pleasure moment of eating what I wanted to eat, but there wasn't really a justification for doing so. I think what became quite clear for me is that every time I ate an animal product, there is killing involved, and it's, you know, vegetarian, or meat, dairy, or eggs, basically. All of those involve killing to some degree. And it involves a sentient being that has a heart like us, that has eyes like us, that has a lung, that has a liver. So, you know, it's not too different from a dog or a cat or a hamster, but we somehow grant some of them life as a pet, and others we consider suitable for consuming. And it just doesn't make sense anymore. So I just thought, okay, I don't depend on it. You know, where I am, I lived in London at that moment, so I had loads of other options around me. I felt confident at cooking at home, so I just said, I don't really depend on it. I don't depend on those animal ingredients, so I'm just gonna cut them out and see how I get on. So it was only 4 years ago that I started that. So not 4 years ago, or even only three. So sorry, 4 years ago I started the videos, but 3 years ago I switched to a plant-based diet. So not that long. But I think the 3 years before that led up to that. So it was again a longer journey. But yeah, it was the right decision at that point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a very relatable story for many of us here tonight. It's never, I believe, never a linear path to. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who go from eating everything to being fully vegan one day to the other, but I think for most people it's really something that happens quite gradually over the years. So yeah, very very relatable story. And yeah, you mentioned living in London, where, you know, London is famous for having all these different cuisines and having really amazing restaurants from, you know, chefs from all over the world. So, you know, I know you've traveled quite a lot for your recipes, but, you know, maybe you didn't have to go very far since you were already, you know, tasting all of those amazing things in London. And I was wondering if during your travels or during your time in London, you've discovered a country that really surprised you with their approach to vegan cooking. That you were like, okay, that's different than how we usually do cooking in your culture.
I think in London it's more that there's, as you said, there's so much diversity. I think a lot of the restaurants there will always have vegan options on the menu, so it's harder to just sort of distinguish a cuisine as vegan friendly because all of them have options. I think what was really surprising for me was when I actually started leaving the UK and traveling and like seeing it in person in those countries. A big one was Turkey, because we consider Turkey as, like, you know, grilled meats, baklava, which is with loads of butter, or like cheesy mains and loads of dairy dishes. But they have an entire category called zeytinyala dishes, and it translates to cooked with olive oil. It's an entire category of Turkish cuisine that revolves around vegetables. And the way of cooking these vegetables is with olive oil as the sort of cooking fat of choice instead of animal fats. And out of that comes so many wonderful, vibrant dishes with, you know, very seasonal, very regional, very creative. They pair that with rice, with legumes, with lots of herbs. Absolutely delicious. But nobody talks about those dishes outside of the country. The beautiful thing is that when you visit Turkey and you speak to locals about that kind of food, they wouldn't understand the term vegan when you mention it, but they understand zeytinyala dishes as a meat-free or dairy-free cuisine. And they're really proud of it. You know, to them, it's not like something where they are, you know, when you say I'm vegan, people start rolling with the eye or like something like that. They don't do that around that term because to them, it's something they share with pride, and that is so ingrained into their culture that they really want to let you taste those flavors. And I think that was really eye-opening, that something like that can exist in a culture that we wouldn't really consider plant-based friendly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I I understand your answer because I believe you share a lot of Turkish recipes on your platforms. So I'm not surprised that you would mention Turkey as an amazing source of inspiration.
I'm gonna add the name to because I just saw the question come up. I'm gonna write it down. I think it's easier than me pronouncing it again. But yeah, sorry.
Thank you for your question, Mika. Yes. But with all those dishes that you've tried from around the world, I was wondering what your favorite dish was, and plant-based dish from your home country of Germany.
I mean, that's a good question because I think there's some countries that lend themselves to the idea of like plant-based cooking. I found that there's 3 reasons for that. Number one is the climate. You know, when you have like a climate that revolves around vegetables and around access to alternatives to animal products, it's much easier in that sort of culture to cook with them. The other reason is religion. A lot of countries involve, or a lot of cultures have fasting dishes that happen to be plant-based because meat, dairy, eggs, all those things are cut out during those periods of fasting. And then the third one is poverty. Good example is really famous cucina povera in Italy, is the cooking of the poor. So again, a lot of people didn't have money for expensive ingredients, which are animal products. So they made use of vegetables, of grains, of legumes, etc. I think with Germany, for example, the climate already falls away. So you have a colder climate. That means that people rely more on heavier flavors, on like things that sort of prepare you for the colder days ahead. So it's quite meat friendly. If you look into sort of the history of those countries, there is actually a fasting tradition without meat, without dairy. So those dishes are there, but I think as a culture, we sort of unfortunately have introduced meat and dairy to those dishes recently. So the choice is slim in Germany if we talk about like dishes that are really currently still traditional. One famous one is the potato salad. If you're really strict, then you still have that being made with meat broth in the south of Germany. But there's this like debate going on between north and south of Germany where if a proper German potato salad is made with mayonnaise, in the north they use it, in the south it's not. So in the south it's basically vegan. Some households use vegetable stock, so then it's entirely vegan. Some, unfortunately, especially restaurants where they have to sort of please the customer and like show something exciting and rich, they usually use meat stock. But that would be my favorite one to choose. It's, as I said, it's quite a slim pickings, but it's a really delicious one to make.
Yeah, potato salad. I mean, with potatoes, I think is a hit. You know, Belgium were the country of fries. So we're not gonna, I mean, I think we can fully understand your choice for a potato-based dish.
Love that.
And I actually wanted to extend the question to the other people listening in today. I wanted to know what your favorite plant-based dishes are from your culture. So yeah, Belgium is quite similar to Germany in culture and climate. But you know, maybe we have something else than fries and potatoes on our menu. So yeah, thank you. I'll have to try making some German potato salad soon.
These two.
We had another question for you that was, do you have a favorite memory from testing or developing recipes from for the cookbook?
Yeah, I think a lot of the recipes in the book are sort of the product of me traveling to those cultures or to different countries and experiencing it there. One of my favorite memories is in Sicily, where I found a dish called lolli con fave that I haven't heard about before. I think a lot of people still think that pasta is always made with eggs, but luckily that's not true. So a lot of pasta, especially when you buy pasta in the supermarket, a lot of like sort of industrial made pasta, but still in a nice way made pasta, is egg free. In the south, fresh pasta in the north of Italy is usually with egg, but I found that in the south and in Sicily, a lot of the pasta that's made fresh is actually just semolina based, so no eggs, completely vegan. And there's a dish in Sicily called lolli con fave. Lolli is the pasta shape that they make. and I spent some time with with an Italian nonna. I think that sets the scene. She invited me into a restaurant kitchen, and we made lolli con fave together. So she made the pasta dough. We rolled out the pasta. She made the fava, which is a kind of bean. She made a stew out of that, and that was the sauce in which she cooked the lolli con fave. And it's such a humble dish, but that experience of making that dish with her and then eating it, it shows that eating is so much about everything that comes before, you know, the experience of like, where do my ingredients come from? How much time do I invest in cooking? It's as much that as it is to sit down and actually eat the dish. So yeah, that's one of my favorite memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, cooking pasta with a Sicilian nonna,
Yes.
I mean, it sounds it sounds lovely, especially now during the winter time.
True.
Really makes us all crave some vacation in Sicily, I think.
Absolutely. But it's good to know. I was really happy to see that pasta is on the menu, even on the natural plant-based diet. So yeah.
Yes, pasta and potatoes or table.
What more can you want?
I mean, there's nothing else, basically. That's it. So someone also asked us how did you actually choose the recipes that you included in the book? And if any of them were especially challenging to recreate, to get right, because you do make some recipes that seem very complex. So
Take 3 days, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God. So I think a lot of it's like 3 different things, I think. So one is just personal preference, dishes that I really loved, that I knew about, that I already know they are like naturally vegan or happen to be plant-based, and that I wanted to include in the book. And then I wanted to have a certain balance. So there's chapters in the book from vegetables to grains to legumes, but also one chapter that combines things into whole meals. What I mean with that is that if you know, a lot of people, if they have a legume dish, it's considered a side. A vegetable dish is considered a side dish. You can sort of mix these dishes and have a feast and put a table together. But there's also certain dishes that, especially from a nutritious point of view, they're just like whole, complete by themselves. So you cook those and you tick a lot of boxes. So that's a chapter. So I think those chapters came quite early on in the process, and I just wanted to have a good balance of dishes in them. And when it came to like sort of challenging dishes, there were a lot of them. I think like the most tested one in the book is actually hummus, which might seem surprising because everybody's made hummus, everybody, you know, but I think that's the problem. Everybody knows hummus. Everybody's had hummus. And I think in order to do that authentic and to do it justice, it had to be right. And it had to be creamy, and it had to be delicious, and it had to have all the toppings. And it took a long time to get that balance of like that perfect creaminess without a single sort of grain. Because if you have hummus in a culture that traditionally serves it, it's so smooth, it's so rich. It's really hard to get that right at home unless you know a few tricks, and it took a long time to find them. Another really challenging one was dosa, the Indian sort of, I think pancake brings it closest as a description, but it's like, well, it's made from rice and lentils, and they're mixed into a batter. And then that batter is left to ferment in our climate for around 24 hours, 16 hours, something like that. In India, 6 hours, something like that. But you need to look out for a lot of things. You need to know, do I add salt or do I not? Because that influences the fermentation. You need to know the ratio between the rice and the lentils. You need to be aware of what actually triggers the bacteria in the batter to ferment properly, because it can spoil. So many things to know and to look out for. And that all comes before, does it actually cook well? So that was a really challenging one to get right. Also because every time you make it, you invest 2 to 3 days of like waiting and, you know, before you can crack on and make the next batch. But I think as with everything challenging, the fun thing about it is that once you worked it out, once you know what to look out for, you learned a lot in the process, and hopefully that comes, or that's quite clear in the recipe, what kind of lessons you need to pick up. But it's one of my favorite recipes as well now. So it's not like the process of making it so many times has sort of like put me off it.
So would you say that's your favorite recipe from the book, or not? Or
It's It's
Or
tricky
is
to
it
choose.
difficult? It's like choosing between your children.
Yeah,
You have to
exactly.
choose your
A lot
favorite.
of children. There's like over 80
Mhm.
recipes in the book. I think it depends. I think I would often say that my favorite recipe in the book is vada pav, which is a Indian street food icon from Mumbai. It's like, it looks like a burger. If you say burger to anyone from Mumbai, they will actually start like, "What are you talking about? This is not a burger." But it's basically it's similar to a brioche bun. It already starts with the fact that the brioche bun usually is made with loads of eggs and butter in France or in the rest of Europe. But in India, they make it without any animal products. So that's fun. You can actually have this sort of brioche style burger bun without any of it in it. The reason for that is again poverty, because they couldn't afford eggs or dairy. But it's really light and fluffy. It's really fun to eat. In the center of that, sort of between that bun, sits a potato fritter, but it's Indian spice, so it's it's proper. It's full on flavor. It's loads of spices in there, but also curry leaves, onions are in there. So I think I can't remember my own recipe, but like mustard seeds, and so it's a lot of flavor. It's not just fried potatoes. Back to the potatoes, by the way, but you can see a theme
There's a
here.
team. There's a team.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But then what makes it really exciting, and that's I think why it's my favorite, is that it comes with 3 different chutneys. So again, it's a lot of work to make it at home, but in India it's a street food. So you go to a stall and you pay 10 cents for a vada pav. So it's really affordable. And they make massive batches of these chutneys. When you make it at home, it takes a little bit more time, but you're rewarded with a very different way of eating it. And that's, I think, why it's my favorite recipe in the book, is because when you have it in India, they're quite sparingly with the chutneys. You get that bread, you get the potato bun, and then a little bit of the chutneys. But when you make it at home, you obviously invest all that time and you want to, make use of all these chutneys. So you use a little bit more and it becomes really exciting. You have a tamarind chutney, which is tangy and sweet. You have a coriander chutney, which is really fresh and herbal. And then you have a coconut and garlic chutney. So those flavors there as well. So 3 different chutneys, really complementing flavors, really fun and exciting textures, the soft bun, the potato fritter. Then you have like a crunchy thing made from chickpea batter on there. Loads going on. It's complex, it's exciting. It's probably my favorite.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. I think you're making everybody hungry.
Yeah, I mean it's a
Craving.
really fun one to
Yeah.
make, because you're making 4 different things,
Mhm.
but by the end of it, it's something really special. So if you want to like cook for somebody and really invest some time and make something special, it's that.
It's amazing. I'll add it to the recipe. That
God,
definitely have to try it.
awesome.
Well, speaking of trying out recipes, are there any recipes that you're like, I'm never making that again? I've
Well,
mastered it
yeah.
once, and that's done for me.
Yeah, I think that a few. Luckily, none of the ones that are in the book.
Okay,
It's
that's
not
good.
like, oh, I gotta hate that one, I'll put it in anyway. No, there's one, like when I went to Turkey, there's a really flaky pastry called boyos, and it's amazing. It's like, again, one of those things you bite into that you think that that's not vegan, but it is vegan. They don't use butter in between. Turns out they actually use margarine, which is made from sunflower oil, which I didn't know. So I try to avoid margarine at home, but I thought they make it with oil anyway, just oil. So I tried to make that. I made my own sort of like phyllo pastry, which is like super thinly rolled out dough, and you can see your hand through. That in itself is quite challenging, takes quite long to make. So I made that, then like flavored that all, rolled that up, and then in the oven it just became one big blob. And it's just like so disheartening because you invest all this time. And I think as I then looked into the recipe a little bit more to figure out what have I done wrong, I realized you do need margarine. You do need like sort of that ingredient, which is not something I would consider naturally vegan. So it didn't really make sense anymore for the book. So I've sort of like shelved that one for a long time.
Okay. Well, it does sound, I mean, it does sound tasty, so
It is
it's a
really
pity
good.
it
And
didn't make it in the book.
yeah. If anybody's ever visiting Turkey or you have like local Turkish shops, you should look out for it. They're called boyos, and they're so good. They're really flaky. They're sometimes plain. Sometimes they're packed with like a tahini sugar mixture, which in itself is delicious. Sometimes they're just very savory with like spinach or aubergines. So a whole part of Turkish food that I didn't know existed.
It sounds amazing.
It's good.
Amazing.
Very good.
So those recipes, that recipe sounded pretty complicated to master. So maybe for like beginners or people who are short on time, what's your go-to easy recipe? You know, after a long day of filming, of creating content, you're like, okay, I just want something easy and quick. What would you go for?
I think my go-to tip for easy and quick and sort of convenience is, unfortunately, and it's a little bit annoying, but it's to prep ahead. So I would always say, like, what I do is when I cook, I always make sure to cook for at least 2 days. So I often cook 4 portions of a meal. Maybe I freeze half of it and then heat it up again on another time. But I think that's the way to save time, because I think, like, if you try to cook naturally and you want to really save time, unfortunately, you have to cut corners at some point. And either that corner is health or it's the way the food was produced. And I don't want to preach too much. Obviously, there are ways that you can cook good food quickly, but I think prepping ahead is really underrated, because, maybe I cook for 1 hour one evening, but maybe I can eat from that 4 times. So it's basically a 15-minute meal every time. But I invested that 1 hour. It's one time cleaning up. So I love doing it that way. One of the easiest recipes in the book is fakes, which is a Greek lentil dish. It's really quick because it's a sort of I don't want to say masterclass because it sounds like I'm tapping my own shoulder, but a Greek masterclass, because it is from Greece. It's their sort of the perfect way to cook lentils, and I love it so much because it's lentils are, again, so underrated, and I think that recipe is super quick, super easy, and it shows you how quickly you can get a lot of flavor out of something like lentils. Obviously, there's onions in there. You can use whatever you want. There's carrot, celery in there as well. Those 3 ingredients make a really good base, and then you cook the lentils with those ingredients together. And obviously, there's a few techniques in there to get more flavor in, but that's one I would always recommend. And outside of the book, if you make it with red lentils, it's even quicker because they're sort of like already split. So there's lots of ways of speeding things up.
Okay. And can you repeat the name of the dish?
It's called fakes, Fakes. If you look in the book, if you look at the time, you'll think, what is he talking about? Because it says total cooking time 1 hour. But again, that's something for me, is like, how long do I actually need to spend in the kitchen? And with the fakes, you can make it very quickly. If you really chop the carrots to minuscule cubes, yes, it will take a little bit longer. But if you just if you had a long day, you can knock it out in 15-20 minutes. Active time in the kitchen. Then leave the kitchen, let it cook, because that will develop flavor. Time is such an underrated ingredient. It's such an important ingredient. So I would say, okay, 20 minutes active, you're actively in the kitchen. That's what you're investing. And then, I don't know, you do something else in the meantime, check your emails, do whatever. And then 40 minutes later, the dish is done. You don't have to do anything else anymore.
Sounds easy enough and delicious.
Perfect.
Well, I hope my voice is going to stay for the remaining of the discussion. So another question we had was, do you ever, because you're really focused on natural cooking, but many people rely on fake meats or cheeses when they go vegan.
Yeah.
And so someone wondered whether that's something that you sometimes also use.
I don't use it at home much. It's something that if sometimes I don't know, maybe I go to a pizza place, etc. It's something that I maybe then have there. I think at home, for me, even before I started a plant-based diet, I sort of had the belief that everything we eat affects nature. Mm-hmm. And again, I say this wanting to make clear that there's nothing wrong with eating those products. I think there's a lot of good in there. I think there's a lot of potential for people to change diet. If you're if you have certain cravings, if you have certain foods that you really love, it doesn't mean you need to give them up, because you can still have them that way. I would say, for me personally, I think a lot of these products unfortunately still have a long way to go in terms of like how are they exactly made. And that's why I said, like, before I went to change to a plant-based diet, I thought like even plants, not only animal products, everything we eat affects nature. So it depends on, how are these, as I said, how are these products made? So I think I would say that, so I personally at home, I don't cook with them much, but it's also because a lot of what I cook is now for research purposes. And I think when you use them, just take a look at the ingredient list. There's a lot happening with those products, which is amazing. There's a lot of great companies starting around them. It's the same that applies to everything. It's the same with if you do eat meat, try to not eat the mass production meat, but try to, source it a little bit better. It's the same with those mock meats. There's mock meats that are produced at a massive scale, and they have an ingredient list that's as long as I know it's a terrible long list. And there's companies and small businesses that try to do better and to put fewer ingredients in there and to have it more natural. And I think then support those, and it's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, no, that's true. So another question we had, but you actually already kind of answered it, was your tips or tricks to make plant-based cooking easier. But, as you said, it's just meal prepping, making things ahead. So I think we had...
Yeah, I think on that, so sorry if I just jump in quickly.
No.
Just meal prep, I think is exactly is a big tip. I think what's quite good to consider is with a plant-based diet is that people have such a protein craze, but it's quite easy to sort of structure a meal by having a source of protein, source of veg, source of grain, and I think you can have a lot of fun with that. So you'll see a lot of cultures around the world following the same principles. So let's say in India you have a chickpea curry, like a chana masala. You have the chickpeas. You have you serve that with vegetables. Maybe vegetables are inside or as a side dish, and you serve it with rice. So you have the protein as a chickpeas. You have the grains, which is the rice, and then you have the vegetables as a side or cooked into the chana masala. And that applies to other dishes in Turkey, or to lentil dishes that you serve with sourdough bread and with dark leafy greens. So I think it doesn't have to be so scary. I think just like in terms of covering your nutrients, if you have those three sort of different groups, you're on a very good track. Try to always have a source of protein. Legumes are amazing. They're an absolute powerhouse of nutrition. And then have your grain with that, have a vegetable with that, and you're off to a good start. So yeah, it doesn't need to be scary or complex.
Yeah, it actually, your answer leans into a question that was entered by Jan in the chat. So he asked how conscious you are about your macronutrients.
Fine,
so your carbs, your fats, your protein. And also he asked how to avoid too much fat in your diet. So I don't know if you have anything to add to what you just said.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's important to understand that everybody reacts differently to food. There's a really great company here in the UK called Zoe, and they are all about personalized health. So I've done a blood test with them where they track your response to food for 2 weeks, and it's really interesting because what I eat, my body reacts very differently to if you would eat the same food, and how your body reacts to that. So I know, for example, that I'm terrible with sugar, but I actually, with fat, it's completely fine. But that's me. So it's really important, and you don't need to do a fancy test for that. You can actually just listen to your body, because your body will tell you. If you feel bad, if you feel sluggish, if you feel something like that, maybe something in the diet is a signal that you need to be aware of or look out for. But the good thing on a plant-based diet, and especially on a natural plant-based diet, is that it's really healthy. It's just so good for you to begin with. A lot of the fats on a plant-based diet, especially olive oil as a fat, is incredibly healthy. Extra virgin olive oil is known as a really important fat for you, because we need fats in our body as part of our diet, so we shouldn't villainize all fats. It's more saturated fats that are a problem, like butter, for example. So again, that's already out of the equation because of the diet. Same with animal fats from meat and other ingredients. And then sort of as a larger topic of macronutrients, I think protein is a big theme with veganism. And that's where mock meats are actually really good because they have more protein in there. An easy calculation is that everybody should consume around 0.8 times your body weight. That's roughly what you need in protein in a day. So that's like 0.8 times your body weight in grams is roughly the amount of protein you need. And you can just look at like, okay, what am I eating roughly in a day? How much protein do I get? And just see that you're close to that level. If you're underneath, maybe increase your protein intake. If you're above, you're probably fine. So it's something to be aware of. But yeah, I think it's always beneficial to sort of check in and see that you're covering all the bases. But I would say that if you're on if you're eating natural plant-based food, it's incredibly healthy. A lot of the cultures around the world that live the longest, like in Okinawa, the blue zones. I don't know if that's a term that a lot of people know already, but it's something to definitely look into if you don't know it. The blue zones. It's like the 5 zones in the world where people get or become the oldest, like with the most centenarians, so people who become 100 or above. Most of them are on a almost entirely plant-based diet. They wouldn't consider them vegan, but they eat mostly plants. So that's really good to know. So I think if you're following that diet already, you're doing a good thing for your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was a very interesting answer, and I hope that Jan, you got some valuable information for that. And speaking about the blue zones, there's a very interesting documentary on that one that you can find online. And if like you said, it's mostly plant-based. That is eaten, a plant-based diet that is eaten in those zones. So yeah, for people worried about their protein intake on a vegan diet, I think we can put that discussion to rest. It's possible to have enough protein and be a vegan.
Yeah.
We had a last question that was sent in, and that was, are there any staple ingredients that you always keep on hand?
The one, I have one. Harissa actually is for me it's the ultimate flavor cheat because it's funnily enough not in the book at all. Just because of where Harissa is from, it's not a country I really researched at that point. And the book is hopefully the beginning and not just one book that covers everything. But when I cook for myself, when I cook at home, I love using harissa. It's got heat, it's got umami, it's got spices in there already. So you get a lot of flavor, a lot of power in that one ingredient, and it will make many, many dishes a lot better. If that's too spiced, if that's too punchy, then honestly, tomato paste is, again, super underrated. I think it goes down or comes back to where does umami come from? If you really think about flavor development in the dish, we need umami for this satisfying flavor sensation when we eat. And tomato paste on a plant-based diet, tomato paste has umami, soy sauce has umami, but tomato paste is just something that's so easy to include, and it makes a lot of things so much richer. Like any broth, any soup, anything you cook, add a lot of tomato paste and you'll have a really nice, rich flavor base to begin with. Yeah, and harissa, absolute must.
Yeah, that was an unexpected answer. I mean, harissa, yeah, it is quite tasty, so I understand it. I did not expect you to say harissa. I thought you were going to say potatoes, but
Yeah, okay.
harissa is
Fair play.
an amazing too.
True. That's a third one.
So I don't know if anybody still has a question that they would like to put in the chat. Now's your moment. I'm just going to check that I did not miss any. I see someone is typing, so go ahead if you have any questions. I'm just going to wait for this person to type out their question. Mika asks, I don't know if you're able to answer this, Julius. I don't think that's your area of expertise, but how come there are so few men attending this webinar? So I must admit, I did not check whether we had more women or men, but yeah, I don't know if you have.
Yeah, we'll have to do a tally after.
Maybe we just have to send more mails to our male audience, Mika. Maybe that would help. So Jan asks, which food do you wish was vegan?
Ooh, God, oh, there's so many. I think like French pastries. I mean, there are good vegan French pastries, but you know, just the like if you go through like any London bakery, they all have this craze about like anything French with loads of butter. And it's so upsetting because you can never have it. And it's then there's always like a vegan option, and like fine, wonderful. But if all of that would be vegan, amazing. That would be great. So that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, French pastry is amazing.
Croissants, pain au chocolat, those. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, those would be great.
Yeah, I understand your answer. Kathy asks, what can we use to replace egg in a dish? Some use the juice of a chicken pecan, so aquafaba. But Kathy asks, but that is not healthy. So what else is there?
Depends on what you're making. I think a lot of people use chia seeds as a replacement for like whatever, like in baking, etc. If you need eggs for baking, for egg whites, aquafaba is quite good. I'm actually not quite aware why it's considered unhealthy. I would say that again, it depends on what else is in the can. But if you have a can of chickpeas that is just chickpeas, water, and salt, if you look at the ingredient list, it should be fine because the aquafaba is essentially just the cooking liquid. So even if you cook chickpeas at home, you're making aquafaba. It's just harder to regulate of how like the density of the sort of the whatever is in the aquafaba that makes it foam up, etc. So it's really hard to make at home. But a can is really reliable. I think it's great. It makes loads of you can whisk it up like egg whites. And it's so versatile. So I love it. It actually makes really good vegan meringue as well, if anybody's ever tried that. So yeah, I don't have anything against aquafaba. I think that's a wonderful one. Chia seeds are a good replacer. Those two, I think, are the most common ones that I know.
Yeah, I think it's the most common ones that are used. So I see that Kathy is typing another question. And Jan, you don't have to apologize. We were all dreaming of French pastry, but luckily there's a vegan French pastry also nowadays.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like most foods now have a vegan alternative, so that's a good thing. And another nice thing is they're only getting better.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. You can basically find anything your heart desires nowadays. So if there's not any more questions coming in, Kathy says that so aquafaba in a can. I think that there are stuff put in a can to preserve the food. Therefore, it is not healthy. If there's any conservatives added, then yes. But yeah, I'd say check the label. But I think most cans do not. Canned chickpeas don't have a lot of preservatives added. And like Julius said, you can make it at home if you.
I think it's tricky.
Well, it's the
weekend
soon, so and it's cold outside, so people will be staying in their kitchen and trying to make aquafaba.
Perfect.
So I think we'll end the webinar here. I would like to thank you all again for attending, and of course, Thank you, Julius, for this lovely evening and Q&A. It was really interesting to hear from you and to discover all your amazing tips and tricks and recipes. I'm
Thank you so
sure
much.
everybody learned a lot as well. And I'm just speaking for myself, but I will be putting your cookbook on my Christmas list. And for anyone interested, it's also translated into Dutch. So little tip for you there. And as mentioned, we will sending the recording of the Q&A to you in a few days. And we'll also send a link for you to evaluate the webinar. That really helps us for future events. So thank you, Julius, and thank you to everybody for attending. And it was a lovely evening, lovely speaking with you. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It was great chatting about all of this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go off now and make some potato salad, as I hope all of you will.
I think we're all going to eat potatoes tonight. So thank you for the inspiration.
Wonderful.
Bye,
Good
everybody.
legacy
Thank
to
you
have.
so
Bye.
much.
Have a
Bye.
good evening, everyone. Bye.
Good evening.